Sometimes. Not all the time. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم حكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. This is I believe our fifth class in the book from Abu Najah, Imam al-Hajjawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni. And his book is a book of Hanbali fiqh, the fiqh of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, and his Islamic jurisprudence. We are now in the book of Salat, and last week we covered some of the conditions of the Salat. Does anyone know what any of the conditions of the Salah are?
Islam.
All right, so we don't need Islam, the intellect, and bulugh, Islamic purity. We're not talking about those three, as they come with everything. The conditions of the Salah outside of those three. The first one we covered was al-waqt, meaning the time of the Salah. The second thing we covered was, The second thing we covered.
You mean when your clothes have to be clean?
Ahsan. Well, that too. So the conditions of the salat, those things that are necessary prior to us praying. We can't pray if the time is not in, right? Okay, so what else? Can you pray with them? Fadda. Being in a state of wudu. Okay. Purification. We didn't get there yet, but yes. Satrul awra, covering the awra, that which is obligatory to cover. The next thing, ijtinab an-najasat, staying away from impurities, right? And then so tonight, inshallah, we're going to cover istiqbal al-qibla, facing the qibla, and the intentions. However, before we talk about that, I want to go back to something that we did last week, and I didn't explain it clear enough. No one brought it to my attention, but when I was actually reviewing it, I realized I didn't touch on one of the issues here. I actually touched on it, but I kind of, went past it kind of quick. So from covering the awra, many of the ulama, the Hanabila, and mind you, we're talking about the fiqh of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Intabihu, pay attention to that. It says, tahrumu al-khuyala'u fi thawbin, that it is haram to have khuyala in your thawb. So last week when I explained it, I just mentioned having clothes, fakhrum, stuff like that, stuff that is elaborate to the end of it. However, when I was reviewing it again, I realized that the maqsad here, or the intent behind this here, is talking about garments that drag below the ankles. So what I did was, I said, okay, let me expound on that topic, garments that drag below the ankles. What is everyone's understanding of that? Having garments that drag below the ankles, huh? What's the ruling on that? Haram. طيب. Huh? Shendik.
Disliked.
Is disliked? طيب.
Towards haram, disliked.
It's disliked and it's towards haram. Yani it's close to haram, but not all the way haram. It's partially haram.
No, they make a distinction about that.
They make a distinction between.
About that.
طيب. Shendik. Dragging your garments below the ankles. It could be in the hellfire. Good. So what I did was, because it mentions it here, but I did some more statements of the Salaf, the scholars that have passed, particularly Ibn Qudam al-Maqdisi in his book Al-Mughni, he mentions mas'ala. It says hukm al-isbal in the madhab Imam Ahmed. What's the ruling on isbal in the madhab of Imam Ahmed? What is isbal? Does anyone know? The word isbal. You ever heard this before? You say this brother's musbil. Never heard anyone say that? Musbil means that his pants or his garments or his thobe is below the ankles. Right, what's the ruling on that? Mas'ala. Qala ba'd al-salaf rahimahullah. Some of the scholars of the past, they say yukrahu isbal shay'in min thiyabihi khuyala. So the first thing they mentioned, they said is hated. So where any part of your garment below the ankles, khuyala, out of arrogance or boastful. It says yukrahu isbalu al-qamis, is hated for a person to wear their qamis or their garments. And qamis, during the time of the Salaf, it did not mean a thobe like we have today. Rather, a qamis is a long shirt. And sometimes they would wear two parts to it. It's not like the way we dress today. So it says, isbal al-qamis, having garments that are long, or izar. Does anyone know what an izar is? We know what an izar is. You wrap it around your waist. Right? And then they also mention mutlaqin. Some of them say that it is hated for any garment to be under the ankles, mutlaqin, with no restrictions, anything. وَكَذَلِكَ السَّرَاوِيلِ. And likewise they mention sarawil. This is an indicator to let people know that during the times of the Salaf, people actually wore pants. People did wear pants. Okay? Some people are of the opinion that pants are impermissible to wear. Some people. Yeah. But in reality, as we find here, كَذَلِكَ السَّرَاوِيلِ. And this is due to the end of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَمَرَ بِرَفْعِ الْإِزَارِ فَإِنْ فَعْلَهُ خُيَلَاءً فَهُوَ حَرَامٌ. So the statement that many of the Salaf, they use, they say the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he commanded with raising the izar, raising it above the ankles. فَإِنْ فَعْلَهُ, يعني if a person allows their garments to drape below their ankles, خُيَلَاءً, out of arrogance, فَهُوَ haram, then it is haram. What does haram mean? Does anyone know what haram means? It's a sin? Right. What's the difference between haram and, or what does that mean if it's haram? It's impermissible. What does that mean though? Fadda. What does haram mean? It's forbidden in Islam. So what happens? It's a sin. So what does that mean? You gotta repent for it. So if I say if you do an action, that action is haram, you just understand that it's what? That's impermissible. But you don't, what does that mean? You're not allowed to do it? That's it? That's all you can think of? Right. So the word haram means that you are, if you do something that is haram, this means that you are deserving of Allah's punishment. Intabih. If you do something that is haram, this means that you are deserving of Allah's punishment. وَإِنْ شَاءَ غَفَرَ لَكَ وَإِنْ شَاءَ عَذَّبَكَ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as it's not shirk, if Allah wills, He can pardon you, or if Allah wills, He can punish you. So understand, when we use the term haram, haram has a meaning. And likewise, anytime we use a word, it's always important to understand the meaning of the word. If you don't understand the meaning of the word, then you don't understand the consequences that are behind it. So, the Prophet, for the ulama, they say this is haram. Meaning, if you have some garments, and this is for men, not for the women. If you have garments that are below the ankles, and you drag them khuyala'an, out of arrogance, then this person is what? When a person does this, they are doing this, if they do it khuyala'an, out of arrogance, if they're doing it out of arrogance, then this is haram. This is haram. This means that this person is deserving of Allah's punishment. And this is due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, لقول النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام من جر ثوبه خيلاء لم ينظر الله إليه متفق عليه. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, whoever drags their thobe خيلاء, whoever drags their thobe out of arrogance, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not look at them. Then Allah will not look at them. And this hadith was reported by Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim. Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim. So then, according to the madhab of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala, if a person is wearing garments, thobes or what have you, and it's below the ankles, and they are not doing it out of arrogance, then this is hated. It is hated. And this is the fiqh of Imam Ahmad. If they are doing this out of arrogance, then it becomes haram. So a person may say, well, brother, we read a hadith that says, كُلُّ مَا تَحْتَ كَعْبَيْنِ فَهُوَ فِي النَّارِ. We came across the narrations that say anything that is below the ankles is in the hellfire. The thing, when we come up with rulings from a hadith, you have to include all of them. You can't just use one hadith, because some hadith restrict others. Some are general and some are specific. So you cannot disregard the hadith when it says that if it is done khuyala'an, if it is done out of arrogance. If it is done out of arrogance, and this is haram. And we also find, essentially, the rule of thumb is that a person should not have their garments below their ankles because it's hated. It's hated. However, if a person does it lil haja, meaning if they do it out of necessity, they have no choice, their garments are too big and they drag, then it's labats, mubah, labats. There's no harm in that. If a person does it out of arrogance, then this is haram. If a person doesn't do it out of arrogance, and they just let their garments hang below their ankles, then this is hated. Is that clear? And this is according to the fiqh or the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala. Any questions about that? No. Say again? Yes, for the pants too. All garments. But I need to drink some of this water.
Cough drops.
That's all it could look like. All right. Is that clear? That was just a quick rehash from last week. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start off with minha istiqbalu qibla. So from the conditions of the salat is facing the qibla. Facing what? The qibla. فَلَا تَصِحُّ بِدُونِهِ. It is not correct. A person's salat is not correct if they do not face the qibla. If they do not what? Face the qibla. Right. And then they come up with an exception, except for two exceptions. إِلَّا لِعَاجِزٍ وَمُتَنَفِّلٍ. Except for a person that is not able. Is there a chance, is there a possibility that a person cannot face the qibla? Are there possibilities of that?
Yeah.
Give me an example of when a person may not be able to face the qibla. A person's in jail? Okay. So maybe a person, if he's incarcerated, and perhaps he cannot, turn his body to face the qibla, perhaps. Somewhere in the jungle. But we're going to talk about that, inshallah. So the next one is mutanaffilin. If a person is praying a sunan prayer, in this case, it is not obligatory for that person to face the qibla. And we're going to talk about that in details. The first thing they mention, raqibin sa'idin fi safarin, yalzimuhu istiftahu salati ilayha. If a person is, let's say for example, a person is driving, and they're traveling or what have you, and the qibla is in the opposite direction. The qibla is where? In the opposite direction that he's traveling to. So, in this case, first of all, it's permissible for that person not to face the qibla, and it's also permissible for that person to sit down and pray, as long as it's a sunnah, not obligatory. I hear a lot of people ask me questions. Is it permissible for them to drive, taxi drivers, is it permissible to pray in their cars? La. It's not permissible to pray in your cars. If you're able to get out your car, get up and stand and pray. It's not permissible to pray in your vehicle if you have the ability to pull over, get out and pray. Well, there. So in this case, if a person is traveling, the only thing that is obligatory for them to do, perhaps pull over, turn around and make takbir al-ihram facing the qibla, and then they continue along their mission and pray while they are facing the opposite direction, as long as it is a sunnah prayer. As long as it is what? A sunnah prayer. And this is from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It says this is when a person is riding. Now, if a person is mashin, yani if they are walking in the opposite direction, then they must stand, turn around, face the qibla. They must face the qibla for the iftiftah, when they start the salat, for their ruku' and for their sujood. When they make ruku' and when they go on down into prostration, they must also face the qibla. وَفَرْضٌ مَنْ قَرَبَ مِنَ الْقِبْلَةِ إِصَابَهُ عَيْنِهَا. So now, the next issue is if a person is directly in front of the qibla. For example, in the haram. If a person is praying in the haram. Did anyone ever wonder why, when you look at the pictures of Mecca, that people are praying facing a circle? No one ever wondered about that? They're all facing the Kaaba. So then it is obligatory. If you see the Kaaba in front of you, then you must hit Ainul Kaaba. Yani your vision must be directly on the Kaaba. You cannot face in any other direction. You cannot face in any other direction. And it says, وَمَنْ بَعُدَ جِهَتُهَا وَمَنْ بَعُدَ جِهَتُهَا. If a person is far away from the Kaaba, like us here in America, then it is permissible as long as we're in somewhat of the direction or vicinity. Yeah, these are not issues that if you pray slightly to the left and he's slightly to the right, these are not issues of khilaf, of differing. Rather, people here, oh brother, you're off 3 degrees, ready to go to war. According to the Salaf, that's the kalam of the Salaf. As long as it's off slightly to one way or another, la bats. La bats. And these are not issues that, even they mentioned, it says, فَلَا يَدُرُّ التَّيَامُمِ وَلَا تَيَاسُرِ الْيَسِيرَانِ عُرْفًا إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ بِمَسْجِدِهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ لِأَنَّ قِبْلَتَهُ مُتَيَقِّنَةٌ. As they mentioned, there's no harm if a person, if they're slightly off to the right from the Qibla, or they're slightly off to the left, as long as it is what? Yasirani urfan. As long as they are generally in the vicinity, generally in that vicinity, then it is okay. Rather, the only time you have to hit Ain al-Kaaba, or the only time you have to hit Masjid al-Haram in Mecca is if you're there. As if you are there. Is that clear? Right. So the next issue. فَإِنْ أَخْبَرَهُ ثِقَةٌ بِيَقِينٍ وَوَجَدَ مُحَارِيبٍ. So now the next issue is, if a person does not know where the Qibla is. Let's say, for example, we have a brother, and there are 2 other brothers with him. And someone, أَخْبَرَهُ ثِقَةٌ بِيَقِينٍ. And let's say a brother that informs you is thiqa. What does the word thiqa mean? Thiqa is a person that is trustworthy, an honest individual known to be upright and truthful. That person must also have yaqeen. What does yaqeen mean? Certainty. Meaning he does not have any doubt. So if a person comes to you that is trustworthy and he's certain and he informs you of the direction of the Qibla, then in this case, if you don't know, then you have to follow that person. And it says, wajada maharib islamiyatan amila biha. Let's say we're in a desert somewhere, but we see, you notice how, you see this indentation right here, in the back right here, this is called a mihrab, right? If you go somewhere and you see something like this here, if you see something like that, then we can use that's okay. The Muslims use this, then we know that this is the direction of the Qibla. Likewise, وَيُشْتَدَلُّ عَلَيْهَا فِي السَّفْرٍ بِالْقُطُبِ. If a person is traveling and a person understands the stars and how they're set up, you can also use the stars to determine the direction of the Qibla. And likewise, the sun and the moon, and how when they descend into likes and like that. This is if a person understands how the sun rises and how the sun sets, so on and so forth. وَإِنِ اجْتَهَدَ مُجْتَهِدَانِ. So here's the issue. It's another issue. We have two brothers, right? How many brothers? Two. So it says, فَإِذَا اجْتَهَدَ مُجْتَهِدَانِ. If two brothers, we're not talking about scholars here when they say ijtihad. We're talking about two individuals. They both are trying to figure out what direction the Qibla is in. The two brothers, they're traveling. One brother says, no, Akhi, the Qibla is this way. The other brother says, la, the Qibla is that way. And they both pull out their iPhones or their Androids. Mine say this way, his say that way. How many people experience this? Everybody, right? All right. So now it's like, nah, brother, it's this way because I remember we was facing before it was like this. This brother says, no, I remember it was facing this way. So they both differ. What do you do in that situation? It's two brothers. Huh? Go ahead, Sheikh. I'm sorry. Mind you, we're talking about the condition of the Salat. So the brother's like, I'm not riding with that. I'm confident that it's this way. His other brother says, no, I'm confident that it's that way. And then y'all, it's a problem now. You're not supposed to fight about it, but how you fix the problem? So then it's time for the Salat. So what, are we going to just pray individually?
Pick an area in the middle.
Pick an area in the middle. Even though you don't believe that that's the correct area. What do? So what if the other brother doesn't believe in the same area? Huh? So what do? You pray 2 times? One time you pray with the one brother, next time you pray with the other? No, nobody's going to do that. You're not going to do that. What are you going to do?
For me, I'm going to figure out this one go this way, this one go this way. Like you said, I'm going to the middle.
So you're going to go to the middle?
Yeah.
Even though you don't believe the middle is correct?
Yeah, because it go this way and this one, I'm not going to the
Tayyib. So you're going to pray in Jama'ah? Tayyib. In this situation, that's for you. I'm going to tell you what the scholars say about that. All right? It says, in this situation, وَإِنِ اجْتَهَدَ مُجْتَهِدَانِ فَاخْتَلَفَ فِي جِهَةٍ لَمْ يَتْبَعْ أَحَدُهُمَا الْآخَرِ. If two people differ in the direction the Qibla is in, and you're certain that is this way, and the other brother is certain that is that way, they both have iPhones, and they both give them two separate directions. What are you going to do? So according to the Imma, many of the ulama of the past, they say that it is not permissible for either one of them to follow the next person. Rather, they will have to pray individually in the direction that they believe is correct. However, this should not be a cause for tafarruq fima baynahuma. This should not be a cause for, brother, you're not on the sunnah and I'm on the, no. It's just that you believe is this way, and he believes it that way, and you guys have to respectfully disagree on the direction of the Qibla. Wadah? Is that clear? طيب. وَيَتْبَعُ الْمُقَلِّدُ أَوْثَقَهُمَا عِنْدُهُ. So now it's 3 brothers, right? Let's go back to the same scenario. It's 3 brothers. One brother says it's this way, the other brother says it's that way, and there's a brother in the middle, so I don't know who to follow. What does he do? He's a muqallid. The one in the middle, he's a muqallid. That means he has no idea of where to go. This is called the muqallid, a person that is following and they have no clue what's going on, but he know one of them is correct. So what should he do?
I think he should go with the one that's trustworthy and he think has certainty and he think he trusts.
Okay, what about you?
I feel like the brother, he's not sure. He can go with either or.
Based on what though? What would he base it on?
Being the fact that both of them truly believe the Qibla is in this direction.
So, but he has to believe the Qibla is somewhere too. So what is he going to do? Remember, one of the conditions of the salat is what? Facing the Qibla. So wherever direction he goes in, he has to believe that that's the direction of the Qibla. So what will he do? This is the third one. The two brothers like, well, look, I'm going to do me. He's going to go over there. And he said, well, I'm going to do me. He's going to go over there and pray. And then the guys in the middle like, what do I do?
Well, being the fact that you don't know, if he choose one, he truly believe like, all right, it's over here, I'm going to go with you.
So what is he going to base his selection on? How is he going to select either one? The brother hit it on the head. He says, Huwa al-muqallid awthaqahuma indu. Whichever of the two is more trustworthy to him, that he trusts the most, that's who he follows. In this situation right here, even when it comes to rulings from ulama, even when it comes to rulings from scholars of al-Islam, and if you are a muqallid is a person that is not able to extract the rulings from Islam by themselves. Rather, even if they were given the dalil, they don't understand it. In this case, it is legislated for that muqallid to follow whichever scholar he or she trusts. Whichever scholar. So you can't get mad at me if I'm following this scholar, and I can't get mad at you if you're following that scholar, because this is the one I feel comfortable with following. Wadah? And anybody wants to look that issue up in further detail, you can find this in books of Usul al-Fiqh, in a chapter called Al-Ijtihad wa Taqleed. There's a chapter called Ijtihad wa Taqleed. It has a lot of details with regards to that. But so then, the next issue. وَمَنْ صَلَّى بِغَيْرِ اجْتِهَادٍ وَلَا تَقْلِيدٍ قَضَى وَإِنْ وَجْدَ مَنْ يُقَلِّدُهُ إِنْ وَجْدَ مَنْ يُقَلِّدُهُ. So here we have another issue. Suppose that same brother, we have a new group of brothers now. They're traveling. They don't know what direction the Qibla is. They just saw, we're just going to face here, Allahu Akbar. Right? They're going to face wherever direction they feel like facing, and they're just going to start praying. In this case, is upon them to what? Make their salat up again. Why is that? Huh? Why do they have to make their salat up again? For what reason? What did they do wrong? They didn't look for the Qibla. They didn't try to find which direction the Qibla is in. That's very essential. That's an essential ingredient when it comes to facing with the. You have to look. You have to try to figure out what direction the Qibla is in. وَيَجْتَهِدُ الْعَارِفُ بِأَدِلَّةِ الْقِبْلَةِ لِكُلِّ صَلَاةٍ وَيُصَلِّ بِالثَّانِي وَلَا يَقْضِي مَا صَلَّ بِالْأَوَّلِ. And this is also very important. The next issue. Let's say, for example, there's three of you brothers here. And everyone is two muqallids and one person that makes ijtihad. This brother right here. So for Salatul Dhuhr, they're in the same place. He pull out his compass, his iPhone. Pulls out his iPhone, looks for the latest app that shows him what direction the Qibla is in. He finds it. He says, we're going to pray in this direction. So they pray in Jama'ah for Salatul Dhuhr. Okay? Now Salatul Asr comes in, a new brother joins. He says, man, I don't know about that. Pull it out again. So he pulls out his phone. He looks. Now it's facing this way. In fact, everybody's just facing that way. And now he's like, oh, man. What does he do? Does he have to pray Dhuhr again? Or does he continue facing that direction? So he faces this direction and prays Asr. What about, so Dhuhr was prayed in this direction and Asr is prayed in that direction. Does he have to pray Dhuhr over again? Yes or no?
No.
Why not?
He was certain that it was the right.
Ahsant. He doesn't have to pray Dhuhr again. Why? Because he was certain when he prayed in that direction, and now he has certainty that he's praying in the other direction. But neither way he doesn't know because it's from ijtihad. Meaning that he's not 100% certain anyway, but he's just trying to figure out what direction the Qibla is in. And mind you, this is according to the school of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Right. So the next condition for the salat is the niyyah. Now the niyyah, ikhwan wa akhwat, is very detailed. We're not going to get into a whole bunch about the niyyah, but we'll get into some parts of it. فَيَجِبُ أَنْ يَنْوِي عَيْنَ صَلَاةٍ مُعَيَّنَةً وَلَا يُشْتَرَطْ فِي فَرْضٍ وَالْأَدَاءٍ وَالْقَضَاءٍ وَنَفْلٍ وَعِيَادَةٍ نِيَّتَهُنَّ. So if a person is praying, let's say we're praying Dhuhr. If we're praying dhuhr, then we have to make intentions to pray what? Dhuhr. Simple. So you don't make the intention and say, okay, I'm going to pray a fard, or I'm going to pray this, or I'm going to pray that, or I'm going to make a qada. Let's say, for example, you missed Salat al-Dhuhr, and now it's time for Salat al-Asr, going into Salat al-Maghrib, and you realize you didn't pray Dhuhr. You don't have to say, okay, I'm making my niyyah to make a qada, you know, to make a missed salat. Rather, you're making your niyyah to pray Salat al-Dhuhr, because you didn't pray. Simple. Simple. However, there's a lot of kalam, a lot of speech from the ulama with regards to the niyyah, the intentions, because it has a lot to do with a lot of things in our religion. وَيَنْوِي مَا تَحْرِيمَةً وَلَهُ تَقْدِيمُهَا عَلَيْهَا بِزَمَنٍ يَسِيرٍ فِي الْوَقْتِ. When do you have to have your intentions for the prayer? It says, when this is called tahrimatan. When you say Allahu Akbar, this is called tahrimatan. Alright? So a person can have his intention right before that, or a little bit before that, so on and so forth. وَإِنْ قَطَعَهَا فِي أَثْنَاءِ الصَّلَاةِ أَوْ تَرَدَّدَ بَطَلَتْ. If a person starts off Salat al-Dhuhr and they say Allahu Akbar, and as they're praying, something happens in their mind, goes off the Salat, and in their mind they break off the Salat, they break off their intention to pray while they're praying, or they're doubting, oh man, am I praying Dhuhr? Or maybe I'm praying, oh man. Once you have that taraddud, that going back and forth, this nullifies your salat. This nullifies your salat. Well there. Once again, if a person cuts off their intention to pray while they're praying, this nullifies the salat. وَإِذَا شَكَّ فِيهَا اسْتَأْنَفَهَا. If a person have doubt in their salat, then they have to start all over again. وَإِنْ قَلَبَ مُنْفَرِدًا فَرْضَهُ نَفْلًا فِي وَقْتِهِ الْمُتَّسِعِ. And this is another issue. Let's say, for example, a person is praying dhuhr. Let's say when قَلَبَ مُنْفَرِدًا فَرْضَهُ نَفْلًا. Let's say, for example, you're praying Salat al-Dhuhr. And while you're praying Salat al-Dhuhr, you realize, dang, I meant to pray my sunnah before Dhuhr, my 4 rak'at before Dhuhr, but I didn't do it. But you already made your takbirat al-ihram for Salat al-Dhuhr. It is permissible, as long as it's enough time in Salat al-Dhuhr, for you to change your niyyah to go from that which is higher to that which is lower. Meaning, you can go from Salat al-Dhuhr and change your niyyah and switch it to the sunnah prayers. However, you cannot switch from the sunnah prayers up to the obligatory prayer. Well then, did that make sense?
Why not?
Why not? Mumtaz. Why not what? Why you can't go from a sunnah prayer to the... Because inside of the sunnah prayer, there's no obligatory prayer inside of that. Whereas inside of the... this is the kalam of the salaf. The kalam of the ulama from the past. They say the reason why a person can pray the fard, the wajib prayer, and take it from wajib prayer down to a sunnah prayer, and they say the inna niyyata nafl mutadakhilun fi fard. They say because the intention to pray the sunnah prayers is also included inside of the obligatory prayer. This is what many of the ulama say about it. That if you're praying your obligatory prayer inside of that, also the intention could be for the sunnah prayer, but not opposite. The opposite is not true. And there's a lot of kalam on this between the ulama, a lot of kalam on it. However, I just wanted to share that part. The rest, we're not going to cover the rest for that, but we're going to start, inshallah ta'ala, bab sifatul salat, the description of the prayer. So now, we covered pretty much the conditions of the salat, what we need before we actually pray. Now we're going to talk about some of the descriptions of the prayer. How do we actually pray? What do we actually do? So here, the Shaykh Imam al-Hajjawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, يُسَنُّ الْقِيَامُ عِنْدَ قَدَ مِنْ إِقَامَتِهَا. So when we're inside of the masjid, when do we stand up to pray? You know when the mu'adhin, he says, he calls the iqamah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamatis salat. Qad. When you hear that qad, that's when people are supposed to stand. That's one position when it comes to Imam, the position, the madhab of Imam Ahmed. But there's another position in the madhab. It says in the madhab, يَقُومُ إِذَا رَأَ الْإِمَامِ. There's another position. If you see the Imam, then you stand for the prayer. This is practiced here a lot. If you see the Imam, you stand for the prayer. This is also permissible. This is also permissible. طيب. It says, after the iqama, taswiyatul saf. Taswiyatul saf bil manakib wal aqub. Taswiyatul saf, it means straightening up the ranks in the salat. Lining up the ranks in the salat. Taswiyatul saf. And then after that, it says, yaqulu Allahu Akbar. The statement of Allahu Akbar, when a person says that in the salat, rafi'in yadayhi, they raise their hands, right? Madmumatay al-asabi' mamdudatun hadwa min kibay. So pay attention to this. When a person raises their hands for Allahu Akbar, these are called min kibay, the shoulders. When you raise your hands, you keep your fingers together like this, near your shoulders. Wadah? And they start off Allahu Akbar. Now, once a person does that, the same way they would do it if they were making sujood, if you're down on the ground in sujood, it would be in the same distance, the same location. وَيُسْمِعُ الْإِمَامُ مَنْ خَلْفَهُ كَقِرَاءَتِهِ فِي الْأُولَتَيْنِ غَيْرُ ظَهْرَتَيْنِ. So, they listen to the Imam, مَنْ خَلْفَهُ. Whoever's behind the Imam, they should hear the Imam. Especially when it comes to the salawat, for example, Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha. You should listen to the Imam. وَغَيْرَهُ نَفْسَهُ. As for other people, for example, for Dhuhr and Asr, a person should hear themselves when they're praying. Allahu Akbar. To yourself. You should hear it yourself. In fact, some say a person should just move their lips. And the others say, la, rather you should hear yourself in a voice only to yourself. The next thing, it says, ثُمَّ يَقْبِضُ كُوعَ يُسْرَهُ تَحْتَ سُرَّتِهِ. And we're going to stop at this point right here for this evening because we're going to explain this in some details. The next issue is, once you say Allahu Akbar, what do you do with your hands next? What's the next thing you do? You put your hands over your what? Over your chest. Right. Before we talk about that, I see brothers hold their hands like this. One hand is holding the end of the elbow like this, all the way up to your neck. Some brothers hold their elbow. This is incorrect. There's no grabbing your elbow. This is not legislated in Islam. Anywhere to grab your elbow like this. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam taught the companions, you take your hand and you grab your left wrist. Either you cup it like this or you put it across like that. Well, is that clear? The next issue is, where do you place your hands? On your chest, above your belly button, below your navel, where? On your chest. Huh? On your solar plex. Come on, Akhi. Solar plex. Right under the chest. Solar plex. I like that. Huh? It was a solar plex. I'm like, what the heck is a solar plex, man? I like that. So, he said the solar plex, the chest, the navel. Huh? Where do we place our hands? The chest. All right. So, according to the school of Imam Ahmed, a person, now don't start jumping, don't throw bananas at me. And I'm just telling you what the speech of the Salaf here. So, according to the school of Imam Ahmed, it says a person places their hand tahta surratihi, below the navel. There's also a sunnah that many people don't know about. Below the navel. Put the banana back in your pocket. I'm about to explain it to you. Alright? So I knew that this would cause some concern, so I said, let me just give you some kalam of the salaf on this so everyone will fall back and relax. This is a position. In fact, we find many of our ulama actually pray this way. And from them, the Mufti, Sheikh Abdul Aziz Ali Sheikh, and others pray this way. I've prayed with them at the Haram, and I actually used to watch. I mean, as students that study with the scholars, if you ever pray around them, you're going to watch every single aspect of their salat and compare it to yours. What do they do that you don't do? And so by doing that, you have the opportunity to watch them. Man, what are they? You know, so always, I never understood why until you actually start reading and say, oh, okay, this is a position. I didn't know that. So it says, يَجْعَلُهُمَا تَحْتَ سُرَّتِهِ رُوِيَ ذَلِكَ عَنْ. So, for those from the Salaf, or the scholars of the past, from the companions who held the position that it is permissible to pray with your hands below your navel, like this. This is a statement of Ali ibn Abi Talib, wa Abu Huraira, wa Sufyan al-Thawri, wa Ishaq ibn Rahuya. And this is the position of many of the Salaf with regards to that. وقال علي رضي الله تعالى عنه من السنة وضع اليمين على الشمال تحت السرة. Ali ibn Abi Talib, he said, it's from the sunnah for a person to place his right hand over his left hand underneath his navel when they're praying. Underneath their navel when they're praying. رواه إمام أحمد وأبو داود عن أحمد أنه يدعهما فوق السرة. And there's another narration of Imam Ahmed when they said they would place it above the belly button, above the navel, or above the navel. وهو قول, and this is the statement and position of Sa'id ibn Jubair wa Imam al-Shafi'i لما روى وائل ibn Hujr قال رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي فوضع يديه على صدره إحداهما على الأخرى. And there's another narration where they said we saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam praying with his right hand over his left when he had his hands on his chest. So this is where this narration comes from. وعنه رواية الثالثة أنه مخير في ذلك. And there's a third position, rather the person is mukhayyir. Yani this means that he can do either way, either below the belly button, below the navel, on the chest, slightly above, and like this. And he says, لِإِنَّ الْجَمِيَّ الْمَرْوِيٌّ. And they say, and this is the kalam Ibn Qudam al-Maqdisi in his book called Al-Mughni. And he says, لِإِنَّ الْجَمِيَّ مَرْوِيٌّ. All of these positions have been legislated. All of these positions have been legislated. And he says, وَالْأَمْرُ فِي ذَلِكَ وَاسِعٌ. And this last part here is very important. This last part here, we find many of the ulama speaking this way. Al-amru fi dhalika wasi'. Meaning, this issue here, there's some room. There's some room for differing in it. So if you see a brother not praying a way that you deem to be correct, that is not for you to say this person is not following the sunnah. Unfortunately, we live in a time where many people who have not studied Islam or have not dedicated the amount of time needed to actually have an opinion. The problem is we have people that haven't studied Islam and they form opinions and they speak about their opinions based on nothing. But if it had something to do with their job, whether if they said the wrong opinion or not, they would get fired. They wouldn't say anything. But yet when it has to do with their religion and their akhirah, many people open up their mouths and they have no idea what they're talking about. And this is advice for all of us, all of the brothers and sisters, myself included. I'm not excluded from that. It is important for a person to speak about affairs that which they know. If you don't know, it's better to remain quiet. You don't want to lie about Allah's religion and say that which you're not familiar with. Even if you've never heard of it, it doesn't mean that it is not correct. It doesn't mean that it is not correct. I remember, I believe one day we was at the Prophet's Masjid in Medina, and there was a hadith that Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, he didn't know. We're talking about Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, and he told someone to repeat that hadith again. He wasn't familiar with it at that time. We're talking about the muhaddith, a great scholar of hadith, but he wasn't familiar with that hadith. He wasn't arrogant about it. Sheikh said, okay, look it up. La bats. So the reality of it is, it's important for people to stay in their lanes. stay in their lanes. We don't want to oppress other people with our tongues. We want to be upright with our tongues, especially when it comes to our religion, and particularly speaking about Allah's deen. As I've heard throughout the years, you might even find people that pray with their arms to the side. Sahwallah. Huh? Like, they have a salaf for that. They have a salaf for that. Meaning there's someone from the past that preceded them in that. No one, and tabihu, no one in the history of Islam from the salaf said that if you pray with your arms from the side, you're an innovator. So then how? No one. So how is it in 2017, if a brother prays with his arms on the side, he's an innovator? MashaAllah. Who said that? Who said that? Well, there's some kalam. There's a lot of kalam. Even there was a narration that one of the companions used to do it. There's some narrations on it. The fact is, that wasn't the shahid. The point of the statement is that people in the past used to do it, and those that did it were not labeled people innovation. So then how are we in 2017 coming up with a ruling that people that are better than us didn't come up with? Well, that's the point. And this is why everyone screams they want to follow the way of the salaf. This is the way of the salaf. Staying in your lane. Not speaking about issues you have no knowledge of. Our religion has rules and regulations. Now, tafadhal.
So because there were people in the past who did it, does this make it correct?
Mumtaz, he said, because people in the past did it, does it make it correct? I can't say yes or no. I'm not a mujtahid. But what it does mean, you don't have a right to say something is incorrect about it if you don't know the dalil. Well then, people that are better than you didn't say it was an innovation. How can you, with no knowledge at all, come and say it's innovation? Did that make sense? Everyone, our religion, Ikhwan, is a very academic religion. There's no haphazard stuff going on. There's no, okay, so you did that. You read one piece of information, like I guarantee you probably never heard about praying with your hands below your navel. Sah? You never heard that before, did you? Oh, you heard. Most people never heard that before. Right? So if you hear someone say, first, oh, this is innovation, this is deviant, we got them. Aha. And then you go, well, the Salaf did it. You got statements of the companions. What about that? Huh? One of the benefits of studying fiqh, as we learn from many of the scholars, is that you learn to respect the kalam of the ulama. You learn to respect the opinions of the scholars who actually studied Islam and put work in. They come up with positions. The reality of it is, just because someone from the Salaf did it doesn't make it right or wrong. But what it makes it for you to have caution before you open your mouth. For you to have caution before you open your mouth. I'll give you an example. There's some issues in the deen. The Salaf may say, on this issue there are three positions. Position A, position B, position C. According to usul al-fiqh, it's not permissible for anyone else to come up with a fourth position if they already have three positions on it. If a person comes up with a fourth position on the issue that there are three positions that was agreed upon by the scholars of the past, then this is considered an innovation. Well then, you're introducing something new in the deen that wasn't discussed by the times of the Salaf. The Salaf never discussed that. You came with another issue and added a fourth one. It says thalith, it says ithnain wala thalith lahuma, meaning there are two positions, there's no third to it. So if we come today, according to what we just mentioned, we come today and say putting your hands to the side, for example, is an innovation. The first thing that will come to a person's mind is who preceded you in that? Who preceded you? When we mean who preceded you from the scholars of the past. Because everything, mostly, if not all, everything that has to do with ibadah was covered by the Salaf. All of it. From praying with your hands to the side to everything else was all covered. They all spoke about it. So if you don't find any of those people in those generations saying this is an innovation, what right do you have in 2017 to say that it is? Does that make sense? Further.
It's many people who say they follow on the way of Imam Abu Hanifa, who also said there's no dalil for connecting the feet.
Shuf. What do you mean, connecting the feet in the salat? Like, majority of the ulama in Saudi don't connect the feet in the salat. Sheikh Fawzan doesn't connect the feet in the salat. I prayed next to him many times. Does that mean the Sheikh's an innovator? Huh? La. The ulama, everything is not one way. The problem is people are taught everything one way. When you actually live among the scholars and see stuff with your own eyes, then you start questioning stuff. Then you start wondering. Then you start learning. Everything is not the way. You'll see, inshallah. You're going to go. You'll see. Don't take my word for it. Go for yourself. Huh? Many times. There are many ulama that don't pray touching feet to foot to foot. It's a position, la shak. It's a position, la shak. But every scholar doesn't do that. Many of them don't do that. Because some of them have different understandings of that hadith. Everyone doesn't understand touching, even though it might say touching if you translate it. And even if you understand the Arabic, it may give that indication. But all of them don't understand it the same way. Well, they? And this is what I mean by understanding the kalam of the ulama. Reading it, understanding it. You might not agree with it. I might not agree with it. For example, if I have a right to have an opinion in that issue, if I earned the right to have an opinion on that particular issue, then I can possibly not agree with it. Well, then, in order to have an opinion about an issue, that means you had to have studied that issue in detail. All positions, all the adillah from every single possible angle, you studied it. And then after all of that, you know all the positions of the Salaf. You know all the dalil, you know all the wujuh istidlal, you know how they use it as evidence. You understand all of that. Once you get to that level on that particular issue, you might be able to give an opinion. But most of us are not like that. Most of us are not like that. And any other questions, Ya Akhwan? Fadl.
Saw a man praying in the masjid, and he says if that man would die today, he would die not on the religion of Muhammad. So how was he praying?
So there's a man that was in the masjid praying, and they said if he were to die today, he would not die upon the religion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's your question? And the question is, how did that man pray?
Yeah, how was he praying?
How was that man praying?
Right.
I don't know.
Then the Prophet Muhammad,
I have no idea.
he said, Sali kamata sala sali or something.
No, sallu, that's a different narration. Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. That's a different one. You're talking about the man who prayed badly. Okay. How was he praying? There's a whole book written about that hadith. Books. There's books. And so, actually, we're going to cover that when we're going through the Sifat to Salat, how we're supposed to pray. We're going to cover that, inshallah. We don't have time tonight, but we're going to cover it through the rest of this, and we're going to get into all of that, inshallah. Any other questions, y'all? Huh? طيب. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.